I'll start it now. This day's a turning point in my life. The day I begin living my life from the inside out. And I am transformed.
Hello everyone, my name is Mirkovich and I'm your host for Family Today. This show is for everyone. It's for parents, grandparents, and young adults. How many of you would like to know if there's such a thing as connecting your loved ones that passed? And how many of you feel that you could communicate with them through a medium? Today we have a guest. Her name is Teresa St. And she is a gifted spiritual reader. And here she is, Teresa St. Welcome to the show, Teresa.
Thank you, Marie. It's my honor to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was so nice that I met you at the Crowns Plaza, was it?
Yes.
And it was so inspiring, the forum, the open forum that you had, and all your audiences, how they were crying and asking you questions about their loved ones, and you were right spot on with them. And you had tears in my eyes also, and therefore I asked you to come to the show and to interview you appropriately. We had a little clip that we did, you know, with a little clip of your show, and I know that you wrote a book also. You're an author. Please share a little bit how you got to this place of and this path of life.
I was born with a veil over my face, which if in the Italian culture means that there's a special gift. And growing up, there were no role models, so I would see spirit my whole life. I went to college. I was a pre-vet major. And I was able to talk to animals. I had quite a few experiences on the farm. My first experience on the farm, because I was a large animal vet student, I opened up the gates to the farm and all the animals started coming towards me, especially the pigs. And I've never had animals charge me like that. And I'm a big woman. They took me off my feet and I'm sitting on a pig's back like I'm riding a horse, and it was really taken back, and they were all talking to me, telling me what they were going on with their life, how pregnant they were, what they were doing.
Now, these are the animals.
These are the animals.
Oh, okay. So when you say that you were able to speak to them or communicate with them, what does that mean, and how does it start? As a little girl?
As a little girl, I wasn't allowed to have dogs. Okay. My grandfather had Duchess. And Duchess became our dog after my grandfather died, and she came to our house. And Duchess, one day I was just holding her because she was just so lonely. Next thing I know, she's talking to me. I can hear her in my head. And from that point on,
so let me just back up a little bit. So you heard her in your head?
I heard in my head.
And in your mind's eye?
In my mind's eye.
Okay, got it.
And then when I spoke back to her, Duchess responded. She would talk to me. She would tell me that she's grieving, that she missed my grandfather. Okay. She would tell me what went on. One of the things that she loved to do was eat. And before she passed, before my grandfather passed, he fed her raviolis.
Oh my God.
My grandfather got a little confused before he passed, and she said that she missed raviolis, and she wanted to know if we would feed her raviolis. So, and I didn't know this story, so I told my parents, and my father said to me, how'd you know that? Grandpa didn't want anybody to know that he fed it her raviolis. And he only told me. I said, because she told me. So that was my first introduction to being validated.
What was your grandfather's reaction to that?
My grandfather had passed. That was my father. I was about 6 years old.
Wow. So you were gifted. You knew, at least in a child's mind, you knew that you were different than other children.
I didn't know.
Would you say that?
No, because
you didn't, because you had nobody to compare it with.
Right.
Okay.
And I grew up in the era of Casper the Friendly Ghost, The Ghost of Mrs. Muir, Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie.
Oh, wow.
So seeing that all on TV and having it happen to me, I thought it happened to everybody.
Okay.
So I didn't know I was very different. And as a child, I was bullied all through school for being the heavy girl. So I came in heavy. I'm still here in this beautiful body.
So you were bullied, and so what was your experience with that?
I kept to myself.
You just kept to yourself.
I just kept to myself, and I would see the angels. I'd always see angels. I saw angels
saw
my
them.
guardian angel since I was young. And she would tell me, just get through school. It's going to be okay. I'm here for you. Even in school, in my worst times, I would see my tag team, teachers, angels, and guides, and I write about that in the book as well.
Oh, you wrote a book. Could we introduce it?
Sure.
Let me introduce it. So this is Teresa's book, What Happens the Day After. What happens the day after.
And it's inspired by adolescent suicide victims.
Oh.
Because I felt so akin to them because of what I went through all of my life. I did try to commit suicide in my 20s.
You did?
I did.
Oh my God.
Several times.
So tell me about that. I mean, if you want to share.
Sure. Because I speak about it in the book.
Okay.
All of my life I was bullied up until I went to college. And even in college, I didn't feel like I belonged. I really never felt like I belonged. I got out of school. I had some personal issues that had transpired. And in doing so, I just didn't want to be here anymore. And I shared this in the book. I was date raped when I was 21, which I was a junior in college. And getting out of school, coming home, everything was just so overwhelming for me. I didn't tell anybody that I had been date raped. It was back in the early 80s when the victims actually were put on trial instead of the perpetrators. So I didn't speak about it, and I suppressed it.
I'm so sorry to hear that, but that's a lot of stories.
It's a lot of stories. I have a lot of stories.
Yes.
So that's how I experienced it for about a couple of years. I've experienced depression, anxiety, in and out of my life. And growing up, I didn't have a lot of friends, so it was just my way of coping. My tag team, my guardian angels, has always been with me, and they've always walked with me.
Now, I don't know how you knew that it was your guardian angel at such an early age, especially when you were 6, when you started speaking to the animal kingdom. I'm going to say kingdom, to the animals. And so how did you know that these were angels that you were speaking to?
By the way they interacted with me, the amount of love and beauty that I saw with them was like nothing I have ever experienced in my life when I was a child. And I didn't see them like I see us in body. They had this beautiful, vibrant, effervescent aura around them, and they made me feel so loved. And content that no matter what was going on in the outside world, I was okay. So I went through life trying to acclimate like everybody else does. I went to college. I came out of college with a lot of debt. I moved into my first apartment, and in my first apartment was Al. My apartment was haunted. And Al was my introduction.
I'm laughing because the way you said that, so eloquently, but, that must have been scary.
It was very scary.
Oh, my God.
It was a year of blood trails in my living room and dining room.
Blood?
Blood.
Oh, my God. Oh, geez.
Rearranging furniture in my house, opening and closing cabinets. I'd get up in the morning and my kitchen would be rearranged. Or I'd get up in the morning and all the cabinets would be open. Sometimes the food would be taken out of the cabinet. Sometimes it would be left in the cabinet. I'd be watching TV and the shades would go up and down all by themselves.
I used to hear stories like that in Europe, Croatia, and a lot of elder people used to talk about that, how the families used to wake up in the morning, and especially this grandmother that always saw dishes on the table, and somebody put them, but they didn't know who, and they knew that it was the person that just passed. I don't know the whole complete story, but you just brought that up in my mind the way I used to hear it when I was a little child. So that, I never was a believer, but I did have a little, I don't know, belief in that part of me, and some skepticism, like with everybody else. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's it. And folklore has a real big basis in our belief structure, as well as there's a lot of truth in folklore. So I think a lot of people dismiss it, oh, it just can't happen, but it does happen. So living in that environment for a year, I consulted a priest, I consulted a rabbi, I consulted my Nana, who believed in spirits, and the last thing she said to me before she passed was, "Don't worry about the spirits, they won't harm you. You got to worry about people, they can harm you."
Oh my God.
That was the last word she ever said to me. So growing up, I had a good support as far as my Nana and my aunt. And my first apartment being haunted, at first I thought it was a leprechaun. So I consulted somebody who was in folklore for Irish folklore, Celtic lore, and we discovered it wasn't a leprechaun. Then I met a bunch of women through work who were actually developing psychic mediums, and they were novices. And I told them my story, and then they came to my apartment, and over the weekend, it was about 3 days, we sat and we did a seance each day for hours, and we would talk to Al.
I will be so frightened. I mean, when you did it for the first time, were you afraid?
No, I was relieved.
You were relieved, okay.
I was living with this for over a year, and in doing so, having the blood trails come, I'd wash them, clean them up, and then they would reappear.
So that didn't frighten you, the blood trails?
It did frighten me. So
and where was it coming from?
he would just do it because he wanted me out of the apartment. During those 3 days, we discovered, he didn't realize he died. He still thought he was alive and in the apartment.
So you mentioned this at the forum, open forum.
Yes,
a
I
lot
did.
of people do not know that they died.
Correct.
And I heard that before. Said, you know, you said it, and it was so, the way you explained it, it was so eloquently explained. Why don't they know that they died?
Some people die tragically, and then they're here one minute, gone the next. A lot of people die in their sleep.
Okay.
So they don't realize that they've died. So when they wake up, they're in a different place, and it's a shocking experience. Al happened to die in the apartment, didn't realize that he had died.
This was the person that lived before you started living in this apartment?
Correct. He lived there
Okay.
for 40 years.
Okay.
Prior to me moving in, but I was one of 6 individuals after he passed. He had scared out other six other families
Families.
prior
Okay.
to me moving in. And being psychic and not realizing I was psychic, there were no role models growing up, other than I just knew I was different. Al used that energy, my psychic energy, my mediumship, my ability to see the other side and feel the other side, against me. So he brought friends. He would bring,
What do you mean by that, against you?
he would use my energy
Yeah.
to make matters worse.
Okay.
They can get into your auric field. They can interface with those people who are sensitive. And I'm a sensitive, I'm an empath as well.
I am an empath, so I feel that if they could drain they could drain it out of you or use it.
They use it.
They use it. And which way would they use it? Just for the people out there who
He
feel
used
that
it
they're
for his-
empaths. They might be empaths and knowing it, so they know how this happens. What are the dynamics?
You know, whether it's spirit or people, there are people who are energy vampires who want to take your
Yes.
energy. No different in the spiritual realm. So he tried to take my energy and use it for his advantage to scare me out of the apartment because he still believed he was alive. So during the course of the 3 days, we talked to him and we helped him move over to the light. And in doing so, he went into heaven, met his mom, met his dad, met his grandparents, and then he left the apartment. And I've subsequently talked to him over the years. And he's come back to thank me on his transition to the other side. That was my introduction to doing this work. And then Archangel Michael and my tag team stepped forward, and I understood what they were trying to do all these years, was they were teaching me and prepping me to do this work. And I didn't want to do this work. I was working on Wall Street, and I was successful. And I didn't want to give up my job. Well, Spirit had another plan in mind. I had a major car accident on the way back from a business meeting. I was in a limousine in the back seat, and we hit an oncoming drunk driver, and the limo spun around and then spun around a telephone pole. People stopped and asked how many people had died because it was that bad of a crash.
Oh my
I had ripped every ligament from my ankle all the way down, all the way up to my neck. 18 months of water rehab and therapy. Because Spirit wanted me to do this professionally, to come out and I do open forums, write a book. I do have a private practice in which I do readings. I do house parties as well, where I come to groups and read groups. Spirit wanted me to help people heal and connect people with their loved ones for forgiveness, for closure, for
So
help.
for those people that are Catholics, because I know that the Catholics are not supposed to believe in this, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm kind of asking you, is that true? Are you brought up a Catholic?
I consider myself a recovering Catholic.
A recovering Catholic, okay.
Because in the Catholicism, they do have priests who do vanquish, who do get rid of spirit.
Exactly.
There are priests, and I do that privately as well. I have clients who call me who live in haunted homes or haunted work environments, and my job is to come in and bring them back to the light so that they're removed from people's environment that are wreaking havoc and unhealthy situations. So, yes, Catholics, if you read between the lines, it's
So
there.
I've seen priests pray over people because they might be, I don't know, possessed. Would that be the right word?
Yes.
Possessed?
And the Catholic Church as a whole is much more receptive to spiritual mediums in the
Do you
last 10
believe that?
years.
Yes.
Absolutely. I've talked to a lot of priests
Yes.
over the last 10 years,
Yes.
and they're much more receptive and open and talk about people do have gifts that spirit does come to individuals, whether it's angels or loved ones or pets, and I specialize in all three. So when I'm
Oh.
doing a reading,
So you specialize in angels,
angels,
pets, and of course people.
And loved ones on the
the
other
loved
side.
ones. So when people want to connect with a loved one that passed away because they're in grief, they do want to. There's so many families that come to me and they ask me, I told you before, about having a show such as yourself, to come to the show and, and talk about these matters. And here you are, and I'm so grateful you are here. And they want to connect with their loved ones. And I say, what is the purpose? Because they want to be relieved. These people want to know. Like when my dad died, I didn't have that feeling. I did pray for him, and I knew he was in a different place. And there's no death, that there's only a transition, I think. And there's an extension of life. This is what my beliefs are. But other than that, I didn't really question anything else. I didn't go to a medium. But today there are a lot of people that are seeking people as yourself, gifted readers or mediums, and they do want to connect. So you do connect them with the loved ones that pass away. Is that true?
In very specific details. In my readings, I give very specific details from their deceased relatives, family, friends, and pets, including angels, about what's going on in their lives as well as people living. And I think it's very important because a lot of people today look for closure. They look for forgiveness. They look for compassion.
Yes.
They look for a better quality of life. And my motto in my practice is live the life that you love. And that's one of the other reasons why I wrote the book, because I have a lot of families who come who have dealt with adolescent suicides, and it is a silent epidemic in this country right now. And
It is.
It is. And we're dealing with it more and more each week, each month, and the statistics are growing exponentially each year. And my heart goes out to these adolescent teenagers, young adults, who've taken their lives and left the family behind. And they wouldn't let me sleep at
They
one
will
point.
not let you sleep.
No.
The people that commit suicide, I'm going to
Correct.
say. Okay, so why do they commit suicide in the first place? What is your take on it?
There's a lot of different reasons why people
There's
commit
different reasons, yes.
suicide.
Yes.
We hear about it a lot in the news is bullying.
Oh, bullying. Bullying is...
Is one of the top.
There is one child, teenager, that took his own life recently.
Correct.
In my community, the Croatian community. And I always ask, why would anybody do that? And I came back with the answer, bullying. Bullying or sexual molestation, I would say, together with it.
Together with it. A lot of older adolescent teenagers who are first or second year in college
Yes.
have really problems acquiescing into that lifestyle.
Yes.
And have a hard time matriculating into that society. So they find themselves overwhelmed, depressed, full of anxiety, and feel like this is the way it's going to be the rest of my life. So that's another reason why adolescents take their lives. So there's society pressures, there's sexual orientation, there's a
Yes.
large list, including depression. And I see so many clients who have children who have passed that it breaks my heart.
It breaks your heart.
And my one person in the book, her name is Michelle. Her mom came to me quite a few times. And then at one point, Michelle came to me and said, I have a bunch of spirits here who want to talk to you.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, no, I don't want to write this book. I don't want to talk to them because I don't have family members here. Well, they would knock on my door
Oh
to my
my
bedroom.
God.
They would make all kinds of noise all night long.
Just like in the movie Ghost.
Just like in the movie Ghost.
Oh my God. Oh, is it true?
It's true.
It is true, huh?
And I refused to deal with them for a long time. And I got to the point where I sat down one night and I said to them, all right, what do you want from me? What can I do to help you? We want you to write this book. We have people here who want to talk to you about their situation because we want to tell people what happens when they get here, when they commit suicide. Too many people are arriving here who have committed suicide.
So the people that commit suicide, do they go to the light?
They can go to the light.
They can
They
go to the
can
light.
go to the
but
light.
they don't necessarily, they are not at the light.
They can and cannot, just like if you pass naturally,
Yeah.
you can and cannot. It's what you choose to do. The difference between somebody who commits suicide and somebody who doesn't is you still have to fulfill your life contract. And there's a purpose. A lot
There
of
is a
people don't
purpose.
realize they have a purpose, especially adolescent children. They don't realize how important they are to their family, to the fabric
To
of
the family,
society,
yes.
to their siblings, to their extended family. And because of that, they think that whatever situation they're in, it's temporary. And that they talk
That
to me
makes a lot of sense.
a lot about that in the book on how they couldn't see their way clear to look to see a future. They didn't have a future.
So they're in, let's say they're disoriented. Would you say that? Would that
I would
be?
say that they're all consumed with their own grief, whatever that grief is, whether it's grief from
the
bullying.
person that dies.
Yes,
They're consumed with
With-
their own grief.
of the situation.
Even on the other side, wherever the other side is.
When they hit to the other side, that all-consuming does depreciate. However, they are then hit with the realization of, my life's not over. I have to still fulfill my life contract because I am codependent with
Oh
other
my
people.
God.
I chose my
Even
family.
when you die, you're codependent. You're still there. Yes, because
still
yes,
responsible
you're
for
still
your contract.
responsible, Yes.
Because in your contract there is a natural progression of life, and within that life we are supposed to engage with other people,
Yes.
and that engagement is either we're going to help them, we're going to assist them, where we're going to give them support, we're going to give them love, or we're going to do something where we're supposed to change events. If I'm not here to make that happen, what happens to those events and those individuals? They don't get to have those experiences. And a lot of these adolescents living who are attempting suicide don't realize that.
They do not realize
They
it.
do not realize that.
But they do have a contract to fulfill yet.
Yes.
Even though they dead, and they know they're dead, and they still want to fulfill that contract. Is
They
that
still
right?
have to fulfill that contract.
They still need to fulfill that contract.
Correct.
And they do it through a medium?
No, they actually do it through orchestration with a complete spiritual family, and that's what I talk about in the book. When you pass over to the other side, you actually have to work with a complete team of spiritual rescuers to coordinate all that was supposed to transpire as if you were still here. Just because you left doesn't mean everything else that you were supposed to do leaves with you. So let's have an example. Let's say,
That is a good thing. Give an example
let
to
me
the
give an
audiences.
example. Let's say you're an adolescent teenager,
Yes.
and you're at a stoplight, and you're with a bunch of people, and somebody walks off the curb, and you're supposed to grab them and bring them back to avoid a car accident, and they're passing. And what if you're not here? Who's going to grab that person? Who's going to prevent that
Got it.
accident from happening?
Got it.
Now, when you've gone to the other side, you have to make sure that situation occurs anyway. So you have to coordinate from the other side.
Is that when they step in and save you?
Yes.
Because I hear stories and I feel it in my being that that must be happening in that way, you know, to fulfill their contract.
Correct. So they don't get to rest in peace,
Yes.
like it's as if it was a natural passing. And there's a lot of details that go along with that in the book that I talk about, how and what happens when we pass to the other side. And my hope is, in working with adolescents, in inspiring people to read the book, is to get people to understand how each of us has a purpose. Each of us
has we only have 3 minutes, but we have a Facebook because people knew you were going to be here. They asked Teresa, there's another Teresa, I'm not going to name the last name. She asked, how do you know when loved ones are at their side? Like when you see the person, a client that comes to you, how do you know that they're there? Like for example, for me, how would you know that, you know, there's a loved one here with me now?
Good example is they leave us signs.
Okay.
If your loved one happened to be a cigarette smoker, and every once in a while you get a whiff of cigarette smoke where there shouldn't be cigarette smoke, it's their way of letting you know that they're around. Or if you find pennies, quarters, dimes.
Look at that. Okay.
You know, your dad always leaves you pennies. You find pennies all over the place.
My father, are you
Yes.
talking to me? We have 2 more minutes, but this is, I loved when you said to me at the open forum, when I interviewed you, that little clip, you said your father's around you and he loves you very much. You're his little girl. Not your exact words, but I'm just trying to remember. And there was tears because how would you know? Even as a skeptic, I said, how did she know? I never met you. You never met me. How did you know that my dad passed away instead of my mother? So that was my like zoom in and, you know, believing point.
And you used to dance for your dad all the time, he tells me.
I used to dance. He didn't really watch me, but he, you know, I always danced and sang and
Right, but
so
how would I
on.
know that?
I know, exactly.
So it's their way of letting, through me, tell you that they're there. But on your own, if you want to look for signs from a loved one, they flicker lights, they hot and cold spots in your house. So those are some of the signs that you can receive from spirit to let from your loved ones, letting you know that they're around. If your pet has passed, some of the signs would be fur or hair from them, or you might hear their nails on the floor.
Oh my God! Oh.
Or some people
and,
have.
and the telephone ringing. We only have 1 more minute, and maybe we should put up the website for Teresa in case some people, the audiences, want to connect with her. Teresa St. Francis, and she has a website, and her number is 201-475-1044. Thank you. So you could reach her there, and also she has the book. I showed it before.
You can
and it's a
pick up the
beautiful
book
cover.
on the website. Thank you. I
Yes.
designed it myself.
Can you get it through Amazon?
You can get it through Amazon. You can go to my website and it's connected right through Amazon. If you want to come for a private reading, you can call the office, book a house party. I have an open forum event coming up on November
that's
16th
right. Yes, you
at the
did
Crown
mention-
Plaza
At the Crown, again.
in
yes.
Saddlebrook.
Yes.
Tickets are available. You can go to the website and purchase tickets as well.
To your website.
To my
To
website.
your website and purchase tickets. Okay.
On Teresa St. Francis, and I pick people out of the audience, which you experience, to stand
my
up,
God, yes,
and I deliver
yes.
specific messages from the afterlife.
Okay, so we have a little more, and then let's see another question. Can we connect with our friends and families and pets also?
Yes, they're always around us. They'll either send us signs, but you can also speak to them in your head telepathically or say a prayer to them. I'm very big in prayer.
You. Thank you so much, Teresa.
Thank you for having me. It was my honor and
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you so much. And thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. Next, we will have a wonderful show for you and your loved ones to enjoy. Till the next time, goodbye for now.
Saw the light, took the path of least resistance, printed by my home, accept the truth.